Thanks for joining us today. I'm Gabe Garish, owner of Backwoods Pursuit, and today we're going to do a Slik tripod review and comparison. We have 4 Slik tripods here. All of these are in their lightweight, ultralight styled tripods that you can use backpacking. That's really what we've used these for. We've got the 633, the Slik 634, the Slik 635, and the Slik 624. All a little bit different, and they have a few different features you may want to know about if you're looking at a Slik tripod, trying to decide which one is going to work best for your situation. Really appreciate it. If you hit that subscribe button and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I'll put links to that down in the description, links to all of these tripods so you can check them out for yourself, as well as a link to our website, backwoodspursuit.com. Tons of gear reviews over there. Go check that out. But let's dive into this review on Slik tripod. All right, now let's go over some of the specs of these 4 tripods. And over on this side is the 624. This is the lightest weight of the bunch, coming in at 29 ounces. The 635 here comes in at 30 ounces. And then the 634 and the 633, both here come in at 32 ounces. So they're all super lightweight, right around that 2-pound mark. Depending on what head you put on it, it can still be well under 3 pounds and have a really nice tripod here. Now the 624 was replaced by the 635, so you can only get this at S&S Archery. They brought it back over there at S&S Archery. They really liked the way this performed. For some reasons we'll go over here in just a minute, but that one is just available there, and then these 3 you can pick up just about anywhere. So they are more available than the 624 here. Now as far as height, this one max height comes in at 44 inches. This guy here is 51 inches. The 635 comes in at 51-inch max height. And then both of these, the 634 and the 633, come in at 64 inches max height. So they are obviously going to be the tallest, so they can work even as a standing tripod, where these 2 are more going to be sitting. You can get a little bit, they'll be high enough to where if you need to use them as standing, you can, but you really have to fully extend that center column, which makes them a little more wobbly. So really these 2 are going to be your standing tripods, and these are going to be your sitting tripod options. Now as far as minimum heights here, on all of these you can take off this center pole, and so then you can take the legs here and put those legs all the way out and really bring that down to the low to the ground. So if you're going to use these, you take that center column out, and you can really take that all the way down and get a lot of, you can get that really, really low for either some camera work, or if you're going to be shooting off of something like this, you can do that as well. So you're right at 14 inches here for these 2 for the minimum height, and that's up to the base here before where the head is going to sit. This one's at 17.5 inches right up to this point right here, and this one's right about 20 inches to the top of that. So this is going to be your tallest and least compact. Now a couple more specs. They all feature the same 8-layer carbon, as well as the same twist locks. I really like the Slik twist locks. They're really intuitive, and they're just really easy to use. If you can grab all of them and then just open up all the legs, it works really well. I really do like that. They're some of my favorite twist locks of all the tripods that I've tested. Really enjoy that. As well as they all have the ability to unlock the legs here. So if you need to really open these up, like we mentioned, you can do that and then extend this other leg, and if you're on a steep incline or something of that nature, you can do that, and then they're multi-position. They all feature that as well, and then they'll lock back into place just by pushing that, and you're back in to where you started. So they all have those same features, and they all have the center column as well that you can unscrew here and just remove that. So if you need a tripod that can get really close to the ground, you have that ability to remove that, and you still have no center column, but you still have the ability to have just a little bit of adjustment here. So there's not much, but you do have just a little bit there. So it is kind of nice. Most tripods you have either the option of a bowl top or something of that nature, or a center column. This is more or less like that, but you do have just a little bit of adjustment. So if you're using your, say, binoculars or something, you do still have a little bit of adjustment if you want to take the whole center column out, but then it's not protruding out the bottom, so you can get really low to the ground with all of these. So it is real nice they all have that feature. Now the naming convention that they use here is intuitive in that it tells you how many leg sections the tripod has. So over here, 633, that last number, the 3, represents the number of columns that how many leg sections you're going to have in this tripod. So here, 633, you've got 1, 2, 3 leg sections on this guy, whereas a 634 is effectively going to be about the same thing, but it's got a 4th leg section. So it's going to be, that's why you have a little bit more compact tripod here than the 633. So you have a 4th leg section here, and so that makes that more compact. But then this bottom leg section is smaller in diameter than the smallest leg section of the 633, which loses a little bit of the stability that the 633. So you're giving up stability with the 634, and you're giving up compactness with the 633. Now the 635 here, as you can imagine, now you've got 5 leg sections. That's why this is so very compact and smaller yet. But you have that 5th leg section here, and that 5th leg section is really, really small, and it really has a lot of flex to it. So if I'm using this tripod, I do everything I can to not use this bottom leg section, because it really does lose stability when you extend that fully out. Now the 624 here is of course a 4 leg section, but it's a good combination of being compact, yet that bottom leg section is still usable. It's not so small that it's going to create extra instability, but it's also a sitting tripod, so it's not going to go as high as the 634 here. So you're giving up some height with the 624, but it's a great all-around sitting style tripod with the 4 leg section. So that's how they come up with their naming convention. That last number in the sequence is going to be how many leg sections the tripod has. So why does that matter? Well, the 634 and the 624 both have the same diameter bottom leg section here, so they're going to be identical, whereas the 635 here, the diameter on that last leg is significantly smaller than the 624 and 634. As you can see, putting those together, that's quite significantly more have more diameter with the 624 and 634, and then over the 633 over here, you can see is a lot thicker on that bottom leg section. So you have a lot more stability with this 633 extended all the way out than you do with the 635 here, the one with the smallest leg section. And then the 634, because it's kind of between the 33 and the 35, you still have a smaller leg section. But because you have a leg section here that is the same diameter as the 624, this being 44 inches in height, and then the 634 here being 64 inches in height, you have a lot more height in this, but you still have the same diameter of leg on the bottom. So you have more instability when you put an optic on the 634 here, and that's fully extended, and all the legs are fully extended. So generally speaking, what that means is you've got less stability with the smaller leg sections if they're used, and then because of the height of the 634 here, you've got less stability if you're putting an optic on this tripod when it's fully extended. Whereas on the 633, because you have only the 3 leg sections and they're all more substantial in their width than the others, you're going to have more stability when this thing is fully extended than any of the others. So the trade-off there with the 633 here is that you've got the least compact, obviously. You put this next to the 635 here, and you've got a tripod that is a whole lot less packable. It takes up a lot more space in your backpack. So if you're backpacking, this can be a bit of a pain. If the height is going to bother you, then that extra compactness of either of these is really nice to have. That being said, a really good balance is this 624. It's not going to be something that you can use standing though, and that's the downside of the 624. But most of the time I find myself sitting down when I'm glassing anyway, so that's really one of my favorites as far as a sitting tripod goes. Now as far as the options and heads, obviously that is endless. You can put just about any head on here. You can go with a ball head like these here, SBH 400s. They come in at about 9 ounces, so not too bad for a ball head. And they do have a pan built into that as well, so pretty nice there. If you need a fluid head, this Shure VA5 is really nice. I've been using this for a lot of years. I've used this for large optics down to small optics, and I've even used this to shoot off of as a support for rifle. Works really well for that also. This one here is the field optics. It's also a video pan head. So we got 19 ounces for the field optics. The Shure here is 18 ounces. These are both 9 ounces, the ball heads. Probably my favorite though overall to pair with really any of these tripods is, as long as I'm not going to be shooting off of it or need something that is going to support a large optic like a big spotting scope, is this Wiser Precision Nighthawk pan head. This comes at 6 ounces. It's a pan head, fits on any of these great, and I ended up using this a majority of the time because that extra weight savings is super nice. So that's definitely one of my favorites in ultralight pan heads. If you're looking at saving some weight, definitely take a look at that. And again, I'll put a link to that and all these down in the description for you to check out. Now, comparing their heights when they're fully extended here, I put them all at their max height, not using the center column. So here we've got the 633 and the 634. Interestingly, you'll notice the 634, while it's more compact when it's all collapsed, it's taller when it's fully extended, not using the center column. And that's because you have that extra leg section that the 633 does not. So 633 here, a little bit taller when it's all collapsed, but it's not as tall when it's fully extended here. Difference being you have a longer center column here to get it up to that 64 inches. I'm 5'11", so just about as tall as I am there. Same here with the 634, about the same height. But you just have less center column, which is nice because the center column is an area that's going to give you more vibration and more shake in your image. The downside there is that with the 633 here, you've got, well, the downside to the 634 is that extra leg section doesn't provide as much rigidity in the legs, or that extra joint down there, that smaller leg section on the closest to the ground, versus the 633. It's just more rigid in the leg section, so there's more or less bend than there is with the 634 here. Overall, more sturdy or more stable with something heavy on top of the 633 is what I've found. Over here in the 635 and the 624, you'll notice they have the same, if you remember, the same height when they're fully collapsed. The 635 here, though, is taller when it's fully extended. So this is where you get that extra height with the 635. So we go ahead and extend that center column up there to get up to that 51 inches. Whereas on the 624 here, this one is up to 44 inches is the max height. So you don't quite get as much height out of the 624, but overall you have a more stable tripod in the 624 here, because you don't have that extra leg section, especially on this guy, because that leg section, again, you have 5 leg sections here, which is a lot. They're all shorter leg sections. They have more joints as well, which helps to create some of that, the less rigidity that gives you a little bit more shake and whatnot with this tripod. So there's quite a bit of wobble in that leg. It just really flexes quite a lot. I'm not worried about it breaking necessarily, just it flexes a lot more than with the 624. It's just a lot more rigid than the 635. So differences, obviously they're just a differently built tripod. You get a little more height out of the 635 though versus the 634. Now, a couple of tips that I found to be really useful with these tripods, and really any tripod that you may use, whenever you're going to extend the legs, instead of doing them one at a time, grab all of them and pull them all out, and then just go ahead and lock each of them like that. Works really well, and it is pretty fast as well, so you can extend all the legs at the same time. The other tip that I found to work really well is that only use the height that you need, and get the height from the legs rather than the center column. The center column, whenever you extend this, is going to add that another joint here that's going to be more unstable when you go to especially put a heavier optic on there, like a spotting scope or something like that. You're going to get more stability if you extend the leg out first rather than using the center column. And on top of that, always extend the thickest leg first, so the very top section, and only use as many as you need. No matter what tripod I'm using, I try not to extend that bottom leg unless I have to, because that's always your thinnest diameter carbon or aluminum, whatever tripod you're using. So that's going to be the least stable and add the most shake into the tripod. So use that top one, and usually only the height that you need, and don't use the center column unless you absolutely need to. I don't mind using the center column if I'm using them for binoculars, because the binoculars are just not that heavy. So I'll maybe extend one section here, and then go ahead and put that, say, around your waist or whatnot, and then sit down and then do all my micro adjustments with the center column. So the exception to using the center column for me, I found that binoculars work just fine that way, and I don't have any extra instability, or it doesn't cause me any problems that way. If I'm using a spotting scope or say a camera, DSLR or something that's a little bit heavier, then I try not to use that center column more than you absolutely have to. So a couple of tips there, and then just make sure everything is tight. So sometimes this bottom, that bottom, at least on these Sliks, you've got an additional stability. This kind of helps lock that center column in place, in addition to your knob here that allows you to extend it. So if one of the two of those is not all the way tightened down, it'll have a little bit more wobble when you go to extend that column. So make sure everything's tight. That should go without being said, but always a good thing to double check. So those are a couple tips that I found to be useful when using these and help in how fast you can get this deployed. If you see a big buck or bull or whatnot, you want to get some glass on it real quick, or whatever it is you're out there looking for, it works pretty well to go ahead and do that. Now lastly, let's go over the pros and cons of these, of how they perform for us out in the field. 624 here, awesome sitting tripod. That max height of 44 inches really limits this to really just a sitting tripod. I like anything, when you extend this center column, if you have the legs fully extended and the center column fully extended, it can handle a larger spotter, but you're going to notice a fair amount of shake doing that. So it's really best as a sitting tripod, and that's really what it's billed as. If you need to use a spotting scope, this VA5 handles even a large spotter. I've used this with an 88mm Koa, something big and heavy like that, and it works great that way. Really where this excels is it's compact, it's very stable, and for what it is, it's at right around or just under 2 pounds, 29 ounces for the tripod itself. You compare that with this Wiser Precision Nighthawk, and you've got a tripod well under 2.5 pounds that really can handle quite a bit of optics as far as even a spotting scope. So great option if you're looking for something compact and something that is still lightweight. Now the 635, the thing I like about this is that you do have that extra height. You get up to 51 inches for max height. What I don't care about this one is that you've got that last leg here that is really a small diameter. If you end up using that, you really notice that it's a lot less stable. So even though it's about the same size as far as packability as a 624, that extra height isn't as usable because of that small diameter last leg. So there's pros and cons to that. It is very nice and compact otherwise, and it's really a great little tripod. I prefer the 624 personally. I don't need that extra leg, the extra height, because this 51 inches really isn't a standing tripod anyways, and you're not going to use a heavy optic or something of that nature with the 635 here anyways. So of these two, I would say I prefer the 624 just by a little bit, because it is more stable and more usable as far as the across the whole height that the tripod offers. And again, all of these you can take the center column off and lay them down really low to the ground for camera work or that sort of thing. Now the 634 here is nice that you get that extra height up to 64 inches. So this and the 633 are standing tripods. They're awesome that way. And this is kind of that in between as far as it's not as tall as the 633. It's more compact, good for backpacking. You can still throw it in your backpack and it's not going to be too bulky. However, again, that last leg is a little bit of an issue with, particularly if you have a heavy spotting scope or something like that on here. I recently had a large spotting scope on this and was doing some testing, and there was just a lot of shake, even with this center column all the way down. And a large part is that because of that lower leg there is pretty small. So if you get a large optic, a large spotting scope, it can be a little bit difficult to get a nice steady picture with that. So keep that in mind, even though you do have that availability. If you're going to do a lot of glassing standing up, or if you need a really super steady tripod at a tall height, I would go with something different than this, but this does give you that ability to use that if you need it on occasion, if you're out backpacking or whatnot. So it's kind of that in between this style here and the 633 if you need that extra little bit of compactness. The 633 here is probably my favorite of the larger ones. Well, not probably, it is. It's a lot more stable. I've used this with a large optic, a large spotting scope, and it does really well. It does a lot better than the 635, I feel like, and largely because of that larger last section. You have less joints here, less that can cause the shake, so you have more stability and you have thicker diameter of carbon all the way down to that's touching the ground. So it does a really good job if you want a tripod that you can stand with or sit down with. And then again, you can still remove that center column, and it's going to be something that you can get really close to the ground. Now that is one of the downsides to this one particularly. You can tell this center column is longer than the 634 here. So that can be something that gets in the way if you're sitting down and glassing. So that center column can hit you in the leg or that sort of thing. So it can be a little bit annoying. So you'll end up having to maneuver the tripod a little bit differently if you're going to use this a lot as a sitting tripod, so that center column doesn't get in the way. So that is a downside to this, and it's just really tall. It takes up a lot in your backpack, so that is also a bummer about this, but it's a sacrifice you have to make for that extra stability that you get with this tripod. So those are the Slik tripods. Once again, I'll put links to all these down in the description for you so you can check them out for yourself. But I'm curious, which one is your favorite? What features and what things are most important for you? Is it having that extra stability at the top end of the use, or is it the compact nature of the tripod? Curious what is the most important to you. Drop those questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching here today, and we will see you next time.